Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Liguori, and along with Raymond Armstrong, we are going to try to proceed in a orderly fashion and a way in which our time is going to be used appropriately. I thank everybody for their time and attention to this matter. We have a ambitious agenda. It's something that we want to accomplish, as I've just said a few moments ago to others here in the room, that we have the momentum and we have this opportunity and we do not want it to pass. And I want to make sure that no one's time is wasted. And with that, I would first of all like to just go around for a moment and have everybody introduce themselves to the other members of the committee. My name is Jim Liguori, and I'm an attorney here in Dover. I've been an attorney for approximately, I think, 45, 46 years, probably longer than most of you guys have been alive. I was a prosecutor for a period of time and have been a criminal defense attorney for the remainder of my career. I believe we have a unique opportunity to make a difference here, and I hope that we all can work together. Thank you very much. Ray.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Raymond Armstrong. I'm an attorney also. I am a criminal defense attorney, as well as a real estate and personal injury attorney. I've been practicing for about 22 years now, and I practice in Delaware and New Jersey. Please do not hesitate to just jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I could go next, sir. My name is Fred Calhoun. I'm the president of the FOP for the state of Delaware. I've been a police officer for 30 years now with the Newcastle County Police Department. Early stages of my career were involved with community policing projects. I was in charge of the hiring process with Newcastle County for a number of years in the mid-90s. I've been the president of the lodge for the past 10 years, negotiated numerous contracts with the agency, so I'm familiar with that process, and became very familiar with the Police Officers' Bill of Rights and other things as the FOP president, and I'm very familiar with how that process is applied to investigations and things like that. So I look forward to working with the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Hi, my name is Charlotte King. Currently, I am the founder and chair of the Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice. I'm a retired social service administrator out of Washington and Maryland. I'm also a retired clinical social worker. I've been living here in Delaware since 2020. And the idea of accountability and transparency have been obsessions of mine ever since my days as a bureaucrat in the state of Maryland and DC.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Good morning, everybody. This is Senator Brian Pettyjohn, represent the 19th District down here in Sussex County. See some good familiar faces here, in this meeting. Good to see everybody. Wish we were all here in person. A little bit of background: I was elected to the Delaware State Senate in 2012. Before that, I was mayor and town councilman in the town of Georgetown. Been very involved in the law enforcement community since my election to town council. Had to go through the tragic events of Officer Chad Spicer being murdered in our town, and that really put the burden, the heavy burden of leadership on all of us here, and really got to know law enforcement and what law enforcement was about, and how to best support law enforcement, but also at the same time hold them accountable, as we should all be held accountable for what we do. So it's great to be here. Good to see everybody, and look forward to a very productive committee.
Thank you, Senator Pettyjohn.
Good morning, everyone. Melissa Zebley. I am a 28-year member of the Delaware State Police, serving in a variety of roles over the course of that time, and presently serve as the superintendent of the agency. Certainly look forward to working with everyone and sharing a lot of the good progressive work we're doing here in the state police. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Zebley.
Good morning. My name is Hanif Salam. Work with the Women to Hope Commission, also a member of the Smart Justice Coalition, and I'm just glad to be here to be a part of this task force subcommittee.
Thank you, Hanif.
My
Good
name
morning.
is,
Oh, go ahead.
Chair, go ahead. Okay, my name is Rebecca Cotto. I'm the Director of Racial and Social Justice and Advocacy for YWCA Delaware, and I'm really excited in participating in this task force.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Good morning. My name is Gerald Rocha, and I'm representing United Way of Delaware, where we have the Delaware Racial Equity Social Justice Collaborative. I'm also a councilman-elect for the 1st District for the city of Dover, and also the 2nd Vice President for the NAACP.
Thank you, Councilman Roca.
Hi,
Okay.
my name is Misty Siemens. I am an attorney with the Office of Defense Services here in Wilmington. I handle a felony caseload as well as some of our policy work, and I really look forward to being a part of this subcommittee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Misty.
Hi, my name is Keith Steck. I'm the Vice President of the Delaware Coalition for Open Government. Transparency and accountability are the central mission of our agency, so I'm extremely happy to be here. As far as my professional background, I work for a federal agency called the U.S. Government Accountability Office, GAO. Some people refer to it as a congressional watchdog. While I was there, the last few years I was there, I also worked in a special investigative unit and worked in the Inspector General's office there. So I'm very happy to be included on this and looking forward to doing great things.
Thank you, Keith.
Hi, good morning. I'm Rob Coop. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Delaware Department of Justice. Been working in the Delaware law enforcement criminal justice community for the last 35 years with Delaware State Police, Department of Correction, and Safety and Homeland Security before coming to the Department of Justice 6 months ago. So it's great to be working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Hi.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm Crystal Womack. I have worked with Network Delaware, currently working with the Safe Schools Initiative, as well as a member of the Urban League Young Professionals. And thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you, Crystal.
Hi, my name's Earl McCluskey. I'm currently the Executive Director of Delgis. We oversee all the police reporting and subsequent data, and we're responsible for the security of that data as well. I have about over 28 years of public service in the criminal justice arena, and glad to be here and look forward to the forward progress that we're having with respect to transparency.
Thank you, Earl.
Good morning. My name is Spence Price. I'm the director at the Delaware Statistical Analysis Center. We provide the state with a research capability regarding criminal justice issues and policies, not only to assist the legislature, but other criminal justice agencies throughout the state. And we look forward to helping in any way that we can.
Thank you, Spence.
Well, thank you all. I think you can tell that we have a great diversity of background that's going to bode well for our subject areas. The next matter on our agenda is just to refresh everybody's recollection with regard to the epilogue work areas, what we are charged with addressing. One is to talk about the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. The second area is the proposed Civilian Review Board of Police Conduct. And the third area is a disciplinary database with access and transparency. So those three areas, I know they're very ambitious, and I think our charge can get them done. I just want to get it done in a systematic fashion. And let me first say that I'm not married to any of this process, other than to say I've discussed it with Ray Armstrong. And we thought what we would do to use the best of our time is to suggest a certain schedule of submissions of these areas that are of concern to everyone. And then we can circulate those submissions to the other members of the committee. And then we can have, as Representative Cook has told us, an honest discussion about how we proceed and what, if anything, we want to propose. So like I said, I'd just like to open it up to anyone who thinks if there's another way to suggest how we get this going. But my proposal was that we put ourselves on a schedule for submissions and get that going. Does someone else have another thought or want to expand on that?
I just would like to, I think that's a great idea. I just would like to add, if in the mix of us proposing, putting together submissions for proposals of what could be done in each of these target areas, would it be possible to also have challenges? I'm sure that there are some potential challenges that law enforcement and others may see, and you know, amending the Bill of Rights or having civilian review boards. Could we also get those challenges so that they will be known up front?
Well, from my perspective, that's exactly what I would include in what I was saying about our submissions to the areas that we have in mind. I've already received, I believe, maybe from Misty's office. I don't know if it came from Misty or someone else in our office, that suggestions about the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights. That's something that we can, you know, get moving. But yes, challenges, I think, and corrections, additions, deletions, whatever, I think the appropriate way to start drilling down on getting to, again, the honest discussion.
This is Keith Stack. One other issue I think we need to be mindful of is the state's Freedom of Information Act, because the law, FOIA, has a lot of limitations on information. I don't know exactly how that, or what implications there are for what we're trying to do, but we need to be mindful of what FOIA may or may not allow us to do as written, and that the law will need to be revised at some point to address some of these issues.
I understand. We have discussed that briefly amongst ourselves, Ray and myself and others, and I want everyone to be aware that we do have, and sitting to my right is Representative Cook, and I think that gives us some appreciation of what FOIA might suggest that we have.
Jim, it's Rob Coop. Good to see you, sir. Just to, is Keith, are you just reminding the committee members that because we're a public body, all of our communications back and forth, these submission opinion papers will all be, you know, public documents at some point? You're just reminding everyone of that, Keith?
Well, that's part of it, but the bigger point of it is also the fact that if you look at FOIA, the way it's written, there are a lot of restrictions on what the public has access to regarding law enforcement data, and even within the government, because if you look at the Bill of Rights, for example, there's some restrictions there that I think might be a potential challenge to what we want to look at. So when Hanif raised the question about challenges, it just struck me that FOIA, whether we're cognizant of it or not, we need to be mindful that it may be an obstacle as written.
But is your question, or is your point of that you're trying to address for the committee members, is that as we talk about a disciplinary database, they may not be able to even see what data exists because of FOIA? Or do you mean if we're going to propose some sort of disciplinary database, we need to be aware of FOIA? Because I think that's what Hanif was pointing out with the challenges. You know, those of us that have, because of our different backgrounds, we're going to be able to share that kind of feedback. So if someone made a proposal, for example, disciplinary database, they want a database that reveals any officer that had a complaint made against them, et cetera, then other members of the committee that maybe have experience in this area, or those that, you know, that are attorneys that work in this area, would be able to point out the challenges in the submission. And I mean, that's how I took what Hanif was talking about, and Mr. Ligori, that is the point of this process, is that it sounds like right now we have a blank slate. Someone's going to have to, you know, put in a submission as what they think is a direction forward. And then we as committee members will comment. The one thing I just want to point out is whatever communications you point out, you know, please recognize that your comments, whether you're an individual or representing an agency, are going to be, you know, open to the public for review and consideration. So it's going to be a completely transparent, etc. conversation that we're going to have, even though we're sending stuff back and forth as committee members.
I absolutely agree with you, Rob, and I hope that's what Keith was bringing to our attention. But I absolutely agree that that's how the process should be, and how we should address the process and be mindful of it.
Well, it's both points. I mean, I think this the FOIA public access to information in that regard as to what people do on the task force overall and the various subcommittees, but also the issue of the way, if you look at FOIA, some of the restrictions don't allow public access to information. So while I think that disciplinary database is a great idea, the way the law is written, that isn't necessarily going to be accessible without the law being revised to allow public access to the kind of information.
So, I understand totally what Keith is bringing up. It's actually specifically section 10002I, defining public records, would have to be amended to define and include law enforcement disciplinary records and disciplinary proceedings. That provision should also amend to make clear the disclosure of these personnel records would not constitute an invasion of personal privacy. So that specific amendment would be necessary prior to moving forward with, you know, a disciplinary database.
If I can intervene for a moment, it seems to me if we start this task force on the assumption of what we can't do because of existing FOIA, we might as well stop right now. It can be that out of the work that we do, we might have to recommend legislative change for FOIA to allow databases, to allow other changes in terms of civilian review boards. But I personally am not interested in starting a process where we're already putting up barriers. That's what happens with legislation. Oh, well, we can't do that because of a barrier.
No, Charlotte, I completely agree. And what Hanif said is correct. What we have to do is we have to address these shortcomings right off the bat, I think, because the law will have to be revised.
Right. If the Supreme Court can revise the Voting Rights Act and make it meaningless, we can certainly, in the state of Delaware, do the same thing and make FOIA less of a formidable enemy.
All right, with those thoughts in mind, are there any other comments to make with regard to the proposed schedule of starting out with submissions and to circulate them. Any other suggestions? So the proposal would be, and these are not in stone, but I would sure like everyone to try to get to them. I propose that September 30th, 2020, we submit exchange of drafts of interested subject areas to myself, Raymond Armstrong, and Sarah Wooten. That'll assure that we all get them shared. Sarah is the boss here, and Sarah's the one that'll get everything to us. So that would be September 30th. Submit and exchange drafts. I already, as I told you previously, I already have a draft of Leober from the Office of Defense Services. I would then suggest our next Zoom meeting be October 22nd. October 22nd is where we would then have some time to exchange our comments with regard to the submissions. And then the work starts really getting drilled down when I would suggest on November 19th, we assemble a preliminary draft and have that circulated and discussed. And then, as ambitious as I am, and this could always change and modify, and we all know that, is by the 17th of December, we submit some type of formal draft to the task force itself. And so that the task force has our subcommittee's work product. So I guess what I need to know from everyone here is whether or not that's a appropriate way to sort of get everything moving here.
Mr. Chair, Rob Coop, question, sir. So when you talked about the draft interested subject areas, submitting those by September 30th, is that all three categories? Leober, Civilian Review Board, the database, so they're not coming in sequentially. Basically, if we have proposals in any of those topic areas, they need to be into you by September 30th, correct?
That's correct, Rob.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, are each of us supposed to submit drafts on all three of the topics?
No, only the interest areas. That's why we have such a diverse group of people here, that the three charged areas of review, whatever is of primary interest to you, that doesn't exclude the fact that you can comment on the other areas. But if there's one particular area that is really important, that's what I would recommend you do.
I have a question regarding one of the areas. It specifically mentioned disciplinary database. What about other data being available that may or may not have to do with this officer discipline?
Okay, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, I apologize. I did not hear that question.
If you can repeat the question, Crystal, please.
Can you hear me? I'm trying to see if I need to turn my volume up.
No, I can hear you now. Is that Crystal Womack?
Okay, great. Yes, Crystal Womack. It was a question regarding the disciplinary database. What if, are we open to suggestions that may be of other available data, not necessarily dealing with officer discipline?
And what do you contemplate, Crystal?
Well, I'm just wondering, things like, so similar to the database that California has, Open Justice, there are multiple open, the police data is open, even things like, stops and that sort of information is made available. And I know that there are ways that we're collecting that information, but it's not necessarily public. That would be outside of, officer discipline data. And so
I think, Crystal, my initial reaction is I'd rather have more than less. So if you think that's something that you want to address, I would encourage you to please do that.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir, are those dates set in stone that you have listed?
They're not set in stone. They're just proposed dates. We can modify them, although I'd like to just keep the enthusiasm and keep the momentum going. So that's why I sort of like set it out in that fashion.
Okay. I just have concern with the October date, that's all. Just a day or two away from an event I'll be attending, which is pretty significant.
Sure. We will, Ray and I will try to accommodate everybody so that we have, everybody's thoughts and concerns here. That's the beauty of our subcommittee.
Jim, I'm fine with the dates, even if we have to move the dates back and forth a little bit. It's an aggressive timeline, but I think in order to get the final draft to the task force in December, we need to have kind of an accelerated timeline to get all this information done.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I made that proposal. But obviously, like I said earlier, we can modify it for reasons if we have to.
I had a question. I guess going to Crystal's point, is there any available data currently on police departments when it comes to arrests made, arrests that move to convictions and things of this nature? Any data at all?
There is data relating to that information, and Sarah and the rest of the staff will be getting that information to us.
Is there also
I lost you.
Can you hear me? It's Maria Matos from the Latin Center. Is there
Yes,
data that can be shared about the percentage of people of color, police officers in leadership, in ranks? I mean, what's the demographics of the armed forces, not armed forces, but police officers or whatever, what have you?
It is my
how many
understanding.
captains are of color? How many lieutenants? What's the staff? What's the landscape look like?
That is going to be a part of the Law Enforcement Police Accountability Committee. So the answer to your question is yes, but it's in a different committee. Workforce development.
Maria, you're muted.
I said, if it's in a different committee, does that mean that we can't have copies of it?
We do share. Yes, we will.
Thank you.
And just so I'm clear, this data that's going to be shared, is it accessible by the public, or we have the privilege of being able to review it because we're on these subcommittees?
Anif, this is Spence Price with the SAC here in Delaware. We're responsible for taking some of the arrest information and reported offense information. It's from NIBRS. It's an FBI across the board type of project. Earl's shop is involved with that as well. But yeah, we do the annual report for the state police, for the Bureau of Identification. They're the ones that collect and review that data. But I can send you a link to our website where that report is. We just posted the most current one last month for last year. And it's a pretty significant document. There's 3 or 4 different documents within it, but I'll ship that off to the subcommittee.
Thanks, Spence.
And Spence, you said that is state police only, or did you mean?
No, it's for the entire state of Delaware.
Thank you.
So I just want to get us back on track here with our 3 areas that we're talking about, and just ask you guys to be mindful of hopefully that September 30th date to submit your subject matter interest areas, and we can then have at least 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to digest that and to exchange comments in October. Any other thoughts, anything for the good of the order to move on, or do we move into the public comments? Anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, this is Keith Steck again. On those civilian review boards, is there another subcommittee working on this? Is there some overlap between them, or is this strictly?
It's us, Keith. We're the subcommittee that's doing that.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thanks for the clarification.
Sure. If nothing else, I'm going to turn it over to the boss and Sarah for public comments. What do you want me to do? Mute myself.
If you'd like to give public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Rebecca Brown, you are now being permitted to speak.
Wonderful. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to present testimony to you today. My name is Rebecca Brown. I'm Policy Director for the Innocence Project, which is a national group that works to free the staggering number of people behind bars who are wrongfully convicted of crimes they don't commit. And I'm also speaking on behalf of the Delaware Project as well. We work in collaboration with innocence organizations around the country and really regard each exoneration as an opportunity to examine the foundations of the criminal legal system and identify ways to prevent further injustice. Just to paint a picture, since 1989, there have been 2,600 exonerations revealed in the United States. And the Innocence Project's here today to really urge changes in the current law in Delaware. And I heard some discussion of this earlier around the Freedom of Information Law. But basically what we have right now is a system that permits the shielding of personnel records of police officers, even when those records reveal police misconduct from public view. Currently under Delaware's Law Enforcement Bill of Rights and its Freedom of Information Law, police disciplinary records are exempt from public disclosure as personal records. The law enforcement exemption from public records is also supported by the Freedom of Information Law. So I think, to make changes here, we would propose to change both of those pieces. The law really perpetuates a culture of secrecy that systematically and pervasively shields police misconduct, and it's critical to a fair and just system that the law be repealed and all allegations of misconduct be publicly disclosed. I know there's consideration of a database here. A database is only as good as the information it contains. So, repealing these kind of secrecy laws is foundational to ensuring information, including unsubstantiated complaints, so that you can populate the database with comprehensive information. 27 states have varying degrees of public access, and 12, including Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, have full public access. When these bills were considered elsewhere, law enforcement voiced privacy concerns, but none of the states that have long allowed for transparency in this area have gone back to keeping disciplinary records secret. And there are a lot of ways to ensure privacy protections for law enforcement, which are well-deserved. And I'm happy to discuss them if you have questions. But I just want to share one case with you about what can happen when this kind of thing remains secret. John Burge, he was a Chicago detective and area commander who, along with his subordinates, coerced countless confessions, many of them false, from suspects through beatings, suffocations, mock execution at gunpoint, sexual assault, and electroshock machines. They directly participated in or approved the torture of at least 118 Chicagoans, most of whom were Black. Through these abusive tactics, Burge and his officers contributed to countless wrongful convictions that have since been overturned, leading the city of Chicago to pay out nearly $60 million to survivors of his abuse. Yet because of exemptions written into Illinois' Freedom of Information Act, the disciplinary records of some of these officers who were on this crew are still withheld from the public. And that really is curtailing abatement of their conduct. They're still, on the streets and able to continue. And states are really beginning to take notice of loopholes in their laws that allow police misconduct to continue unabated. They're taking action. And I really share this testimony with you today, not only as an advocate for the Innocence Project, but as a former investigator of police misconduct for the city of New York. I have firsthand knowledge of the importance of making all disciplinary records transparent, even those that don't result in discipline. For instance, here in New York City, we did just do this very thing. We repealed the secrecy law here in New York. That led to the publication of a database in the city of civilian complaints. And we looked at the law enforcement officers attached to wrongful convictions. Each one of them had a litany of complaints against them. Not one of those complaints had been substantiated. But when you look at the records, you see clear patterns of misconduct. So I just would say, as an investigator, I observed how many complaints lodged by the public were unsubstantiated or unfounded, even when they had merit. And it was only upon further examination that we came to learn that many of those complaints had great merit, but couldn't be proven because evidence like body cam footage was withheld from investigators. And there are other reasons too, which I'm happy to discuss. But I mention this all to say that all allegations, regardless of whether they're substantiated, should not be hidden from public view. Delaware is one of the states with the most restrictive laws in this area. It needs to be addressed given that liberty interests and the very integrity of the criminal legal system are at stake. And the Innocence Project strongly supports addressing the need for this foundational reform to increase police accountability and transparency in governmental operations. Transparency is inimical to government that earns the public trust, reduces the prevalence of wrongful convictions and wrongful prosecutions, and could ultimately save the state of Delaware millions of dollars over time. And of course, prevent so many acts of possible misconduct and wrongful conviction. So thank you very much for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. And please, if you are inclined, you may submit to me or to the committee any suggestions you may have with regard to your suggestions about addressing the Leober area.
I'd be happy to, and we'll work on that right away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are additional public comments, please raise your hand at this time.
Okay, so those of you that know me, though I don't know that I don't like to waste time, I like to get to the issue and move along. I again thank you all very much for your time and attention. I know we're going to address this issue and we're going to be leading in this reform. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I'm going to say I wish you a happy and safe day. Anything else?
The final matter that I would like to address is that if there's any comments or anything, I would ask that you guys would address that to Jim or I first before going public with it, so that we be able to speak with one voice coming out of the committee, if that could be obliged. Thank you.
Before closing, would just like to add that I do appreciate the time everybody take and the willingness to affect change in this area. But as we just look at the times that we're in, this task force and this subcommittee was created because of serious issues that are happening in Delaware and across our country. And while we go into this planning and submission phase, I just ask that all individuals in the community and also involved with law enforcement just be mindful of the times that we're in, the tension that is within communities. And at best we can just try to keep our neighborhoods, our communities safe without the use of force when possible.
Thank you, Hanif. I don't think anyone disagrees. Thank you very much. Anything else? Nothing? Thank you all, and let me personally thank staff here. They've done a wonderful job keeping us online, and I expect it to continue. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everybody. See you.
Thank you.